You are now watching Juan Gotti Talking Sports.
YouTube, what's going on? It's Juan Gotti here with yet another Washington football team video, and we have something a little bit differently. And I decided to switch it up a little bit and do one with a special guest. I was going to do this video originally by myself, but I was like, man, that's kind of boring. Why not have a debate about it, get some different aspects and point of views about it? So I was just like, why not bring on a special guest and Natty from DMV Sports Zone? How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on and on your first one of these. And I'm looking forward to talk about our Washington football team, our beloved team. And no, I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Like I said, I appreciate you for coming on. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL. And also make sure you guys subscribe to Natty's channel. Link will be in the description. Let's get straight into today's video. Okay, so the first topic that we have on hand, obviously the most important topic, and that is quarterback. Me personally, and we're going to obviously talk about the draft and free agency, but me personally, I want to go a veteran route. I've been saying this since, the season's been going on. Obviously, we knew we had Alex Smith and Taylor Heineke came out of nowhere. And we thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be the future. But once we got over that and we realized, hey, man, he's not. I was a person that wanted to go with a veteran route more so Matthew Stafford. And then when he got picked up by the Los Angeles Rams in that trade, my mind just went blank. I didn't know who I wanted after that because that was my guy. That's who I wanted. And I really didn't do my research on anyone else because I really thought we had a major shot to get Matthew Stafford. Once we didn't get him, I was like, man, who else could we possibly get? Then you hear the Marcus Mariota rumors. You hear Jameis Winston. You hear Jacoby Brissett. You hear Tyrod Taylor. And obviously the major one in Dak Prescott. But the guy that I really want now is Taylor Heineke to be the starter or Kyle Allen. I'm a person of if we go out and get a veteran, okay, cool. But since Matthew Stafford isn't out there anymore, since that's the guy that I really want as far as a veteran route, I would draft someone in the later rounds. But if they went on and said, hey, we're rolling with Taylor Heineke as a starter, which I don't know if they're going to do. I highly doubt that's what they're going to do. But if they were to roll out there and say, hey, we want Taylor Heineke to be the starter, we're going to let him compete in training camp with Kyle Allen and whoever the third quarterback may be, I'm fine with that. That's what I want for the quarterback position because not only is it going to be a cheaper deal, we can always draft someone in 2022 because being at the 19th draft spot, I think we kind of played ourselves out of the quarterbacks. A lot of people want Trey Lance, but I'm not sure if he's going to be there. I'm hearing Mac Jones, and I wouldn't mind Mac Jones, but I'm not the biggest fan of Mac Jones. I think we're just setting ourselves up with another Dwayne Haskins case, and I mean by surrounding yourself with talent in college with so much talent that the quarterback looks so good when he gets in the NFL, he's really not. So that's my stance. What is your stance on the QB vacancy, free agency, the draft?
So first and foremost, if we can't go after a guy like Deshaun Watson or a Dak Prescott, I think I'm on the same wavelength as you, actually. I think I want to go after a veteran quarterback more so than a guy we can get in the draft, largely because we have so many young guys on rookie contracts right now that we need to take advantage of, especially guys like Chase Young, who's probably going to be up for $27 million down the line, and Montez Sweat as well. So I would much rather go the veteran route. And again, if we can't go after the top two guys right now, I like Marcus Mariota. I really do. I liked what I saw out of him towards the tail end of last season with Las Vegas Raiders. And I think he would at the very least bring very good competition in that quarterback room that we have right now with Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke. I think Alex Smith, his release is a foregone conclusion at this point. I just don't think he's going to stay around for too much longer. That $20 million cap hit is just too much for potentially a backup quarterback. But that's how I see the position. Also with Marcus Mariota, you wouldn't have to give up a first, second, third, maybe even fourth round pick to get him. It might just be 2 fourths or maybe a fifth and a fourth, something like that. So wouldn't have to give up too much. And like you said earlier about 2022 potentially drafting a quarterback, I think, we can do with the sort of stopgap type of quarterback now and then go full force for a legit quarterback next year if we don't get one this year. And but that's my thoughts on the position in terms of free agency. I would like a guy like Derek Carr as well. 4,000 plus yards, 27 touchdowns, I believe, 9 picks, was a very good statistical season for him and did play very well. And like Mariota, obviously played for the Raiders, but I just don't think, Las Vegas is going to trade him. They're going to probably trade one of the two, but I just don't think they're going to trade Carr at this point. So, but he would be a great fit as well, but veteran route for sure.
Yeah, man. We're both on the same path. I know I'm a little bit, different as far as wanting to stay in house with Taylor Heineke or Kyle Allen. And let me clear the air. That's if we can't get another veteran quarterback like Marcus Mariota. Now, I was never the biggest fan of Marcus Mariota, man. I really wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to see him fail in Tennessee, you can possibly say that's his fault. You can say it was the coaching staff, whoever you want to put the blame on. I just wasn't the biggest fan. After I seen them play in Oakland in those short games, I believe the one against the Chargers where they almost lost or almost won, rather, I seen potential. You know what I'm saying? But then I also seen why he was a backup quarterback because that game he played good. In that game, he also threw interceptions. So he showed you flashes, but he also showed you why he's a backup. So if we were to get Marcus Mariota, I think he'll fit Scott Turner's scheme. I think he'll be able to, show the young guys what to do and what not. I mean, he's relatively young too. So Taylor Heineke and him are really the same age, kind of. So they, although he has more experience than Taylor Heineke, they both can learn from each other. Only quarterback that we know is going to be on this roster for sure next year, as of right now, is Taylor Heineke. I don't think Alex Smith is going to be on the roster. I really hope he don't because we can save so much money by letting him go. I'm not sure if they want Kyle Allen back. I want Kyle Allen back, but I'm pretty sure they're going to get it done. But I don't know. Although all the thing we can hold on is that they're Panthers guys and they still have that, rapport together. So they're going to want each other back. I'm not sure though. And other than that, I think we need to go to veteran route and possibly draft a guy in the next year's draft or possibly Trey Lance if you want to go that route. But me personally, I want a veteran quarterback.
I was just going to say as well with Marcus Mariota, I just think the reward is so much bigger than the risk at this point with getting him. I know we'll probably have to give up a late round pick, but when you're talking about a guy who could potentially vie for a starting spot on our team, I just think, it's too good, right? Like, and at worst, right, he doesn't win out the quarterback competition and is a backup, but I mean, you can never have too many good, cheap backup quarterback. So I think he would be a good fit here regardless.
We move on to the next topic. I just wanted to cover the draft a little bit as far as the quarterback position. Mac Jones and Trey Lance are really the two that's leading the way. Zach Wilson, obviously Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are a long shot. So we're going to talk about the two realistic options being Mac Jones and also Trey Lance. So how do you feel about Trey Lance and Mac Jones? Me personally, I'm not really the biggest fan of either, but I'm going to also be honest, I haven't really dug, deep into their tape just yet. I've been watching a little bit here and there. Once we get closer to the draft, then I'll, watch more. But me personally, if we had to pick the two, I would go Trey Lance, although he's much more of a project. I feel like he fits this offense the best. Trust me, I'm not a big fan in either one of them, but if we had to pick one, it would be Trey Lance because Mac Jones was on a stock team. Obviously, with Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, really good. And I'm scared that we're going to go back down the same path that we did with Dwayne Haskins, where he was on a stack team. We obviously know Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell, etc., etc. That team was just phenomenal. And I'm not sure if Mac Jones can handle it on his own. If we had to pick one, it would be Trey Lance. So out of the two, who do you like? Who would you be more comfortable with? And who do you think leads Washington to this success this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Use the word comfort and comfortable. Honestly, I wouldn't be comfortable with either one as the starting quarterback, at least for the 2021 season. I just don't think either one is ready. Mac Jones may be a little bit more seasoned at this point, but like Trey Lance does have all the traits that you want out of a starting quarterback in this league. I will say, though, I like to keep this on the low, but I am sort of a Bama fan outside of the DMV sports. So, with Mac Jones, I saw what he did last year, and obviously he was a Heisman Trophy finalist, but at the same time, he had so many weapons like you touched on, right? He had Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, had a very good offensive line, very good defense as well. And I just don't think, in DC, he will succeed unless we go after some receivers in free agency, some high-end receivers. which I know we'll probably talk about later. But I just don't see it, Mac Jones. I don't think he has the necessary arm strength that you need out of an NFL quarterback. He does have good accuracy. I'll give you that. But I mean, do we want another Daniel Jones type of quarterback here in DC? I just don't know about him. Trey Lance, again, the traits are all there. He has the arm strength, the mobility. Reminds me a lot of Josh Allen coming out of the draft. If I'm going to be honest, right, doesn't have too great of accuracy, but his 13 starts, I believe, very, very much scares me at this point. He only had one start this year, played in only one game. But I know that's the guy that a lot of people love out there in the Washington football team community. But I would much rather, if I can't go after a guy like Zach Wilson, who I've been high on since, you guys can check the tape, since late September, early October, then I would probably wait a little bit to draft the quarterback. And if not draft a quarterback, then outright get one in free agency at this point.
So if they say we had to pick one in Trey Lance or Mac Jones, I would rather go Trey Lance and probably have Marcus Mariota come in here or Taylor Heineke, in which I want to do, let Taylor Heineke start for the next couple of years. But then what if we do that? And who's to say Taylor Heineke's only 27? Who's to say he comes in and, doesn't, ball out, or should I say ball out rather, and he could be the future. But we'll touch on that a little bit more into the video. But Mac Jones or Trey Lance, I would go Trey Lance. He's going to be a project, but he has the more upside than Mac Jones. So next on the list that we want to talk about here is the free agent wide receivers. Would you rather go free agency or the draft? I really think we're going to go free agency because Ron Rivera has talked about wanting a veteran wide receiver, and this is the year where you cannot miss on veteran wide receivers. There's so many veteran wide receivers if you want to go old or if you want to go young with the big guys like Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Curtis Samuel, just to name a few. What do you want to do, and who would you get in free agency? What do you think is the most likely landing spot or more realistic option for Washington to get? Me personally, I think Curtis Samuel is going to come here. I think that's like a done deal, not officially, but officially, because obviously we know the ties with Ron Rivera. He's a former Panthers player. Scott Turner knew how to use him, and he would be such a lethal weapon. Terry McLaurin is best friends with the guy in a way. They both went to Ohio State. Chase Young went to Ohio State too. So I just think it makes too much sense not to happen. I think Curtis Samuel is going to be a Washington football team player next year if Carolina doesn't re-sign him. It's not looking like it. Then I also think that we can possibly land Allen Robinson. My philosophy going into free agency is go offense heavy because the defense, although it's missing a couple parts, I think it's good enough to, compete in 2021 if we have a good offense. I want to go offense heavy in 2021 and then, obviously figure out the quarterback position, whether that's the draft or free agency. But I feel like if we do go heavy in free agency as far as skill positions, I think that might mean we're either rolling with a guy on the roster, signing a tier 2 quarterback in Marcus Mariota, or the draft if we go offense heavy at the skill positions. I think that makes this wide receiving core lethal. Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, and Curtis Samuel. That is obviously a top trio in the NFL, in my opinion. Who is the wide receivers that you want, and who do you think the wide receivers Washington will most likely get? And also, would you want to go free agency or the draft?
Yeah, I know we talked about this off camera, but I'm here in Chicago for school, and much like Zach Wilson, I've been high on this guy in terms of, a target that we could get at that point via trade, but now via free agency, and that is Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson is the clear-cut number 1 receiver in this free agent class. He gives me a lot of Terry McLaurin vibes, right? He produces no matter the quarterback, whether it be Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles. It really doesn't matter. He just continues to produce, and I think he'd be a great fit here alongside Terry. Also, a very good route runner, very good when it comes to attacking the ball in the air, and very good at creating separation, has pretty good speed, right? Isn't the fastest, but very good in that aspect. So I would love Allen Robinson to be here. He's sort of like the dream pick, right? The receiver position. I will say, though, if we do go after Allen Robinson, I don't personally think that we'll have enough money, or at least it wouldn't be a smart investment to also dish out potentially $9-10 million a year to Curtis Samuel. I think, the smart play actually would be going after a Jameson Crowder type in the slot, because he does offer a lot of good play at the slot position, which we know is not settled right now with Steven Sims right there, and also would not cost too much, is, getting up there in age, but still can produce. And I know he's gotten injuries over the last couple of years, but I think, he would be a good play here, and he knows the area very well, so it wouldn't be too much of an adjustment for him. Corey Davis would also be a good pick, but over the last couple of months, I've slowly but surely, lessened my love for him, at least in terms of a receiving option. And largely because, he's probably going to command 15, 16, 17 million dollars a year. And he's more so a high-end receiver too at this point. So would you rather pay 16, 17 million a year to Corey Davis as your high-end receiver too, or pay 20 million for Allen Robinson, who is arguably one of the top 6, top 7 receivers in the entire NFL? So I'd probably go with the Allen Robinson route at that point. In terms of veteran or the draft, I would probably say veteran at this point. I would probably say veteran for most of the positions outside of maybe offensive line and maybe linebacker, but we'll talk about this a little bit later. I got one guy who I'm actually willing to dish out a lot of money towards on the defense and free agency, but I would probably say veteran route at this point. Go with a guy like Allen Robinson. If you can't go on him, can't get him, a lot of teams are probably going to vie for him, especially Chicago, right? So hoping to retain him. I'd probably, maybe a Juju. A Juju might be a good guy that we could go after, or someone who's, pretty serviceable, who could be that receiver too for us alongside Terry, because we need as much receiving help as we could get. Also, it'd help out whatever quarterback we have that we ultimately acquire if we do go with the Taylor Heineke route that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, man, totally. I want to go free agency, and you touched on a few players like Corey Davis. I really didn't mention him because I'm not the biggest fan of Corey Davis. It's not that he's not good. He's obviously good. It's just his inconsistency really scares me. And you brought up the point, do you really want to pay a guy like $16 million, $17 million if he's going to really be inconsistent? So I really don't want Corey Davis unless it's on a, maybe $11, $12 million deal. If it's up in the 16, 17, $20 million range, I do not want Corey Davis. You also alluded to the point of Jamison Crowder. I made a video on Jamison Crowder. I would not mind Jamison Crowder, but he is not the guy that I would want. I'd rather go for Curtis Samuel, because although he's going to cost you a little bit more, I feel like he has a little more upside than Jamison Crowder. Although Jamison Crowder isn't old, I feel like since we drafted the guy, or we had the guy first rather, I feel like we know what he is. I feel like we know what he's capable of. I feel like he's reached his ceiling. On the Curtis Samuel front, I feel like he has a little bit more potential that he can reach, untapped potential that is. And with Jamison Crowder, I feel like he's already reached his ceiling. And I just wouldn't mind Jamison Crowder, but I wouldn't want him. I would more so want Curtis Samuel. Although it would be more expensive, I think it would be more better for us in the long run. Jamison Crowder, injury prone. You know what I'm saying? He was eyed here. He was always a safety blanket for Kirk Cousins. Never that stud, but he was serviceable rather. He dropped a couple punt returns. You know what I'm saying? He was questionable in the punt department. I just don't think it would be smart for Washington to go out and get a guy like Jamison Crowder if they really want to make this offense into what it has the potential to be. I think Curtis Samuel will really be good for this offense. You alluded to Allen Robinson costing life. We can't get Allen Robinson. We can probably go to older age route and get maybe Marvin Jones. He can be a serviceable number 2 alongside Terry McLaurin. I just don't think you have to get a top tier wide receiver. I would love a top tier wide receiver in Allen Robinson. But if you can find that serviceable number 2, something like you did with Logan Thomas, you seen that he had untapped potential and we've got the best out of him. If we can get that low-key guy that's going to make you scratch your head when you sign him, but then once the season's over, you look back up and say, oh my God, this dude had 600 yards, 700 yards, and he's a wide receiver too, 5 touchdowns. This guy is actually really good. Shout out to Ron Rivera and the front office for knowing what they're doing. Something like they did with the Logan Thomas deal, like I said. I would not mind that, as long as we get Curtis Samuel or maybe a Jamison Crowder, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him, I wouldn't mind him. We just got to spend our money right so we can also have money to spend elsewhere.
Would help out Terry a lot because we know how many times this guy has been double covered, even triple covered. Like, it's been crazy. And we really want to see him have that very big breakout year where he just puts up monster numbers. And I think the only way to do that is with having a very solid receiver beside him.
So next on the list we're going to talk about is the linebacking core. Some people may think that the linebacking core is bigger than the wide receiver too, finding that guy next to Terry McLaurin. They think linebacker is bigger than that. So we're going to talk about the linebacking core, free agency, or the draft. A lot of people like Zaven Collins, Dylan Moses. You have Jayon Brown out there, Levante David. What would you do as far as the linebacker position goes, draft or free agency? What I was saying would be smart for Washington, since I think they're going to go, and I feel like the smarter route to do is to go heavy on the offensive side of free agency. I feel like this is the smartest way to go about the linebacker position, is get a guy like KJ Wright, who is still serviceable, has experience, not going to cost you a lot. And then also, maybe with your first round pick, draft a guy like Dylan Moses or Zaven Collins, pass coveraging linebacker. But I would rather go for the guy that's in Notre Dame, Koromoa, if he's there. But the smartest way to address linebackers, since I think they're going to go offense heavy, is to, get a guy like KJ Wright in free agency, then draft one of your linebackers, whether that's the first round or the second round. I think that would be smart for the Washington football team. What do you think about the linebacker position? How would you address it? And how do you think Washington will address the linebacker position? Because a lot of people think, especially Chris Cooley, think we are linebacker away from having the best defense in the NFL.
Yep, I've been in that mindset since September. I don't say this a lot, but, JP Finley and I don't usually agree on many things, but we're definitely going to agree on this one. I want Levante David, man. I'm going to go all out. Like I said earlier in the video, this is the one guy on defense I would spend a lot of money on in the offseason. And I just think he's too good of a linebacker, man. It's just too good of a fit. Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio have been talking about the linebacker position nonstop since before even the season started, right? And I just think, with Chris Cooley and his comments, I think we are truly a linebacker away from being a true top 5 defense. I know the stats show it, and a lot of fans want to point that out, but I'm talking about, like, we'll instill fear in every single offense that we play against consistently, right? And we won't, be vulnerable against some of the best offenses in the league, right? Against the Chiefs, who will play this year. So I would definitely go with Levante David. I think for the first time in his entire career, a lot of people really got to see how great of a linebacker he is. And he was on the Super Bowl run for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I think it would be a great play there. And also, when you think down the line, right, when we're potentially got to play the Bucks in the playoffs, or maybe down the line in this regular season, taking away a very key piece from the Tampa Bay Bucks, I don't think that's talked about enough. And I think Levante David would be a great play here. I will say, though, if we don't go with the Levante David pick up in free agency, maybe going with a guy like KJ Wright, like you mentioned, or I would actually say more so the draft. I think Dylan Moses, and the dream pick in the draft would probably be Micah Parsons. I just think he offers everything you want to see and potentially could be a Devin White for us. He offers that sort of game-breaking ability at the linebacker position. But yeah, Dylan Moses, someone you didn't mention earlier, but Chaz Surratt from North Carolina gives me a lot of Cole Holcomb vibes. So maybe, getting him in the 3rd round, 4th round would be very nice and very much solidify that defense, because again, we need that linebacker, man. Like, I know even Corey from On the Warpath likes to talk about this a lot, but John Bostic, it's just not it, man. He's a very good high-end backup at the linebacker position, but I do not want him being that starting Mike linebacker. And I know we have Cole Holcomb, right, but he isn't. He's very much a liability in coverage, if we're going to be honest. And Kevin Pierre-Louis is pretty serviceable, but 1, he gets injured a lot, and 2, more so a backup at this point. So I think we need to shore up that spot in order for us to have a very, very, very top-flight defense.
So before we move on to the next topic, I just want to talk about Ronald Darby. Would you rather sign him or go in the draft? And if you were to sign him, what would his deal look like? If not, pass him on and get a guy in the draft. Who would you get? Maybe a J.C. Horn or something like that. Me personally, I would rather re-sign Ronald Darby. He wants to be here. He's from here, and he played phenomenal this past year. It's no reason why he shouldn't be back here in Washington unless they want to draft a guy at 19. $30 million, $10 million per year on a 3-year deal. I think that would be good for Ronald Darby, and we'll have our cornerback position locked down for the foreseeable future. How would you address Ronald Darby and the cornerback position?
Yeah, I just don't think, with the young team that we have now, that you can really afford having another hole on this team. I just think you have to re-sign Ron Darby. I mean, he played very impressive this year, very solid play. Did not get beat too much. I mean, he did get beat a couple of times, but I mean, you're going to have that with any quarterback in today's NFL. This, though, with Ronald Darby, do not get Ronald Darby re-signed, or potentially, I mean, I'm just going to throw this man's name out there, but Richard Sherman potentially for a couple of years, maybe being that outside cornerback for us while we have all those young guys on those rookie contracts on the defensive line. I would definitely go the draft route. I definitely think hopefully Patrick Surtain could potentially reach, the 15 to 17 range. Maybe we'd have to trade up a pick or two, but even then, there's some other guys. I think Caleb Farley would probably be too he'd probably be drafted too early, but I think there's a lot of good guys you can get in the draft that would not make the Ronald Darby loss too big of a loss. But at this point in time, man, like I said earlier in my comments, you cannot afford having another hole on this team, especially on that defense, right? Because we all think it's pretty much solidified at this point. It's a very good unit, and it is the strength of our team. I just don't think you can have it no longer be the strength because you lose Ronald Darby and don't want to pay too much. I will say in terms of contract, maybe not 30 million over 3 years, maybe more so like 25 or 27 million over 3 years. If you could sort of get that kind of contract out of him, we'll see, man. Maybe he might plead for more money. We'll see about that. But I definitely think, with him wanting to be back, $8-9 million a year, maybe a little bit more would be enough.
Yeah, man. So you alluded to Richard Sherman. I don't think I want to go with Richard Sherman. I think that he's pretty much done in terms of being the Richard Sherman that we know and love.
Mm-hmm.
I really just think, I'm not going to say it's time for him to hang it up, but I don't think he's the guy that you want on the outside. Maybe a depth piece for sure. I don't know if his pride would be put aside and he would love to be a depth piece. Who loves to be a depth piece, really, when you can be a starter? But I just don't think Richard Sherman is the guy we need to go after. You said if all else fails and we had to get a guy like Richard Sherman, I understand that. But I just don't know if that's what I personally would want to do. I wouldn't, go with Richard Sherman. Like I said, I feel like he's old. He's slow now. And he's always been slow. But when he was younger, he was able to, cover that a little bit. I just see Josh Norman all over that signing if we made it. Obviously not the contract, but just him being older, him being slow. I would not like Richard Sherman unless it's here for, depth reasons.
Definitely number one, Ronald Darby, get him back and really work from there. Because I don't think the quarterback position with Kendall Fuller, Ronald Darby, and Jimmy Moreland, I don't think it's settled by any means. I think it still gets someone in the draft and maybe shore that position up. But I don't think it's a weakness, by any means. I think we had one of the best secondaries in the league. Admittedly, it was because, our defensive line was so ferocious and definitely caused the opposing quarterbacks to be under duress so many times over the course of a game. But our cornerback room isn't too bad. And I think Ronald Darby is definitely a centerpiece at this point.
So we're nearing the end of the show here. To close it out a little bit, I just want to talk about the offensive line. What do you feel about the offensive line? How do you feel? Are you good with it? Are you, we need to upgrade here? A lot of people want us to draft offensive line in the first round, get Christian Barasoff from VTech, but I don't really think we need to go offensive line in the first rounds, even first 2 rounds. Me personally, I think once we get Brandon Sheriff under contract, because I feel like we're going to pay him his money that he rightfully deserves coming off an all-pro season, not to mention he was hurt too, so he's coming off a phenomenal season. He deserves to get his money. Once we tie him down, everyone on the offensive line will be tied down. Chase Roulier just got paid. Brandon Sheriff would have just got paid. We obviously got Cornelius Lucas and also Sadiq Charles coming back. We have Morgan Moses, Big Mo on the right side, obviously. That's my guy, man. I love Morgan Moses. I trashed him last year, but I just love Morgan Moses, man. He just gives me that uncle at the cookout kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Getting Brandon Sheriff tied down, I think everything will be fine. Me personally, we can upgrade upgrade at the left tackle position, probably going out and trading for a guy like Orlando Brown. I'm not really the biggest fan of it, but if it happened, it happens. I wouldn't be mad at it. If we got Christian Barisoff at 19, I would not be mad at it, but I'm fine with our 5 guys that we have. And I'm a guy that wants to spend money in free agency other places and want to draft other places. But if we did go out and address the left tackle position, I wouldn't be mad. But if they also came out and said that we're going to go with the 5 guys that we had in 2020 and, obviously go with them in 2021, I'm all for it. That's what I prefer. So I hope we do that. But if we do upgrade it at the offensive line, I won't be mad. It's a win-win for me.
Yeah. For me, I mean, he threw his name out there, and I don't think he's being discussed enough, honestly, but Orlando Brown, traveling a couple miles down the road to play for the Washington football team, I wouldn't be too mad about that. I know, obviously, a big money contract and probably going to have to give up a lot of draft capital to get him, but I mean, he wants to play as a left tackle in this league, and I think he would be a great left tackle for the Washington football team. I will also say, though, with the offensive line as a whole, I'm not too worried about it. I know a lot of fans going into the season were very worried about it. They were wondering, oh no, what we're going to do with left tackle. Cornelius Lucas, Jerron Christian was not too great early in the season, but over the course of the season, the offensive line definitely progressed. I think we got to a point where we were middle of the pack towards the end of the season, and I think the big thing, right, obviously, re-signing Brandon Sheriff. That's where the buck stops when it comes to all of our free agents and stuff. Brandon Sheriff, all-pro, right guard in this league. You just cannot let a guy like him go on an offensive line that isn't, top 10, top 5-ish, right, at this point. You cannot let a guy like him go, one of our best offensive players, period, right now. And we got Chase Roulier locked up for an extension. We have Morgan Moses, your guy, right there on the right side. So I think from center to right, we're very solid there. And then we got a guy like Wes Schweitzer, who, again, isn't being talked about enough, but he played very solid last year as a left guard for us. And, a lot of us were thinking Sadiq Charles is going to take that left guard spot right away. But obviously with the injuries that he had, Wes Schweitzer, man, was absolutely balling out, was just pancaking opposing defensive linemen all season long. And I think he definitely solidified that left guard spot over the course of the season. But hopefully this year with Sadiq Charles being back and healthy, maybe him and Schweitzer could potentially contend for that left guard spot. We'll see about that. But at left tackle, it's tough. Cornelius Lucas, I think my ideal thing with him, as I've been saying on like a lot of platforms, is that I would much rather have him serve as that Ty Nsekhe swing tackle role where he could really excel. And I think that would be perfect for him. And then potentially going after a guy like Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle out of Virginia Tech in the DMV, and hopefully returning and staying home in the DMV. I would much rather have him be that swing tackle and then maybe going after a guy like Darrisaw or going after a guy like Leatherwood out of Alabama as well. And unlike you, actually, on this point, I think we're differing on here, but I think I would rather draft a left tackle or offensive lineman, period, in the first round. I just think no matter the quarterback that we have to solidify the offensive line, especially on that left side, which gave up a little bit too many sacks this year. I think we were 650 plus sacks this year, or near 50 sacks overall as a unit. So I think those are sort of my thoughts on the position. And I think we should be good there, but I think we can do a little bit better.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you on that front. The thing with Orlando Brown is I haven't seen enough out of him that playing left tackle, and he wants to play left tackle. That's his position. But as far as the Washington football team goes, I don't know if I want to give up all that compensation, because trust me, they are going to want compensation, a lot of compensation. I'm talking first round picks. And notice I said picks for Orlando Brown, because he's a left tackle. Left tackle is one of the most important positions to cover in the NFL or play in the NFL. So I think with a guy like Orlando Brown, I wouldn't be too comfortable with giving up all that compensation. Plus the money we're going to have to pay him, because he's going to want to be paid a lot of money. I just think we're setting ourselves up if we did go after a guy like Orlando Brown. We haven't seen a lot of him playing left tackle, like I mentioned. He's been playing right tackle, and rightfully so. Ronnie Stanley is so much more better than him at left tackle. And I'm saying that without even seeing him play left tackle. And also with Orlando Brown is I'm just not too comfortable with him. If we did go to address the left tackle position this offseason, I would rather go with the Leatherwood or Christian Bearsall in the draft because they're young. We'll have them on rookie deals, and they can always get better. They can always sit behind Cornelius Lucas. So I think the left tackle position is the most important position as far as to get right for the Washington football team. But I feel like that the offensive line is good, and I feel like I would be comfortable if we went 2021 with this offensive line. Hope you guys enjoyed the collab. I was going to do it by myself, but then at the end, I was like, why not have someone on, and why not bring on someone like Nadi from the DMV Sports Zone? I felt like this would be the perfect collab to give both of our, opinions on the team, where they stand at right now. So as always, me and boy Juan Gotti, like, comment, subscribe. Hell to the Washington football team. Any last words you have for them?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on once again. And again, it should be a fun offseason, and looking forward to seeing what our Washington football team actually does.
So there you have it. It's been boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe. Hell to the Washington football team. I'm out. Peace. Cross me one time, that's gonna get you pop. Get you pop, get you drop. Slide on the one way that get you boxed on. I ain't stopping till I